Hey guys, it's Brittany. So today I'm going to go over the amounts of alcohol in different types of tinctures and stuff, and how much is safe for infants, young children, that kind of thing. So I have another video on, if you're working with the pediatric population, you want to give them liquid doses, how you can give them liquid doses and not use alcohol. I will link to that in the description and have a little hover card somewhere, whatever. But if you want to give alcohol, need to give alcohol, whatever, for me, the question remained after that, well, like, how much is safe, right? At what point do we need to be concerned about how much alcohol you're giving a small child? Which sounds just horrible to say out loud at all. Like, none? You should never, I don't know. Anyway, what I did was I looked up some information on herbal tincture dosing and infants, and some information on how much alcohol we get in our daily lives, to sort of try and triangulate what the safe amount is. Because obviously this is an area where it's not like we have a randomized control trial. Nobody like stuck a baby up to an IV with different amounts of alcohol and saw at what point it was not safe anymore. Like, that's just not ethical, right? So it's one of those areas I've tried to extrapolate from a lot of different places. So, take all of this with a big grain of salt and be really super cautious, because we really don't know exactly what doses are totally safe. So basically, I'll just cut right to the chase. There's 3 doses that I'm going to talk about, ranging from 6 milligrams per kilogram to 75 milligrams per kilogram. So in Europe, a lot of this information I found came from Europe for whatever reason. The European Medicines Agency has a paper on infant dosing, which I will link to in the description. And in it, they talk about 6 milligrams per kilogram is the amount that they think should be perfectly safe, in the sense that even if a 6 milligram per kilogram dose is in a medicine, it doesn't even need to be labeled. It is likely not to cause any symptoms whatsoever. Now, this is supported by the fact that in a paper I found by Gorgas et al., which I will link to below as well, they studied how much 6-year-old children how much alcohol 6-year-old children ate in a day, and they estimated it to be on average about 10 milligrams per kilogram, with the high end being 23 milligrams per kilogram. So in other words, just by eating a lot of fruit juice and breads, which have alcohol from the yeast fermentation, anything that can undergo fermentation will have a little bit of alcohol in it, you will be getting potentially 10 milligrams per kilogram, which is lower than 6 milligrams per kilogram, therefore supporting the European Medicines Agency that at 6 milligrams per kilogram, it should not cause any symptoms. As a side note, I love math, but numbers do not love me back. Like, I get myself so confused. I never did well in my math classes, even though I loved them all. Like, actually, my favorite class in the world was my calculus class in high school, which I barely passed. And this has given me serious PTSD, this particular post. I never want to do something with math in it. My husband is a mathematician. I had him look over everything to make sure I hadn't made a mistake, and he kept trying to tell me that no, I had not made a mistake and everything was correct. But even just the words he would use to tell me I was correct, I didn't understand. And I was like, I hate this so much. I'm not touching math ever again. Anyway, so we have our super safe dose of 6 milligrams per kilogram. We have average dietary intake of 6-year-olds to be 10 milligrams per kilogram, with a potential high dietary intake of 23.3 milligrams per kilogram. And then we have from the European Medicines Agency a proposed upper limit of 75 milligrams per kilogram. And I say proposed upper limit because I want to make sure that you know that this is not like they have hard and fast tested it to make sure that it is exactly 75 milligrams per kilogram, that anything below 75 milligrams per kilogram is safe. That is not what they are saying. It's a proposed upper limit. Theoretically, should be the upper limit. And note that I don't think we should be getting anywhere close to 75 milligrams per kilogram, because that is the dose at which the European Medicines Agency says you are potentially going to see alcohol intoxication effects. We do not want to make our babies drunk. Don't be given 75 milligrams per kilogram, okay? That just sounds horrible. But I do think it's helpful in terms of sort of putting doses in context to sort of know what is probably completely safe, 6 milligrams per kilogram, and what is probably not safe, 75 milligrams per kilogram, okay? So the range we're dealing with. All right, now, what does that, so in order to then calculate how much of your particular medicine you can give to stay at that dose, you need to know the percentage alcohol in your particular medicine. Now this changes based on the preparation method, of course. A lot of herbal extracts are going to have 50% alcohol. They're traditionally made, with 50% grain alcohol in the mixture. So that's a fair bit of alcohol. So if you're dosing in drops, I will show you. I made a beautiful Excel sheet, which you can download. I have the link below. I have so many links in this thing. Anyway, so I will show you my little Excel sheet for if you have a 50% alcohol solution, how many drops that equals to get to these different doses. Okay, so here we have our different doses. This is, shouldn't say average daily exposure. That's incorrect. And this is the 6 milligrams per kilogram. This is the safe dose according to the European Medicines Agency. You don't even need to label this dose. It's considered so safe. This is your average daily exposure. So yeah, ignore these titles. 10 milligrams per kilogram, high dietary exposure, 23.3 milligrams per kilogram, and the proposed upper limit, 75 milligrams per kilogram. Okay, now you have your body weight of your patient over here. So let's say you have a 4-pound preemie. In order to get to the 6 milligrams per kilogram, you can only give 1 drop, right? Which kind of makes sense. They're tiny little humans, right? 1 drop, and you're already at that dose, okay? And if you are a little bit more daring and you want to do 23.3 milligrams per kilogram, you can only give 2 drops before you are at that dose. Okay, now if you've got a 1-year-old who's 33 pounds or 15 kilos, then you can give 5 drops to get to the 6 milligrams per kilogram dose, or you can go all the way up to 18 if you are more comfortable at the 23.3 milligrams per kilogram. And you want to make sure you are nowhere near 60. Now, that may sound like, oh yeah, 60 drops, that's like so much. But remember that a teaspoon actually has a fair number of drops in it. So if you are dosing by drops, if you're cautious, you're unlikely to give too high of a dose. I mean, even for our 4-pound preemie or our 2-kilo preemie, it's 8 drops of an herbal tincture. Okay, so if you're dosing by drops, you're unlikely to get to a super high dose too fast. But if you are dosing by teaspoons, which people in the herbal community do quite often, then you do want to be paying attention, because you can actually pretty quickly get to a toxic dose, okay, depending on how much alcohol is in your tincture. Now, not everybody has a 50% solution. So I have done another calculation based on a 20% alcohol solution. That's the amount that I use. The preparation I use is 50% water, 50% vodka. Vodka is 40% alcohol. So in total, it's a 20% alcohol. Please God, let that math be right. I swear to God. I've done this so many times to make sure I'm correct. Anyway, so this is the Excel sheet for a 20% alcohol solution if you were to do 50% water, 50% vodka. So for our 4-pound preemie, 2-kilo preemie, you can now give 2 drops to get to the 6 milligram per kilogram, and you have to stay below 19. So you see there's a little bit more wiggle room, right? Because it's a lower amount of alcohol. And for our 33-pound 1-year-old or 15-kilo 1-year-old, you can give up to 11 drops if you want to stay at the 6 milligram per kilogram. And, you know, you have for the 23 milligram per kilogram dose, if you're a little bit more daring, you've got up to 44 now. But the proposed upper limit is going to be 142 drops, which again, if you're dosing by teaspoons, is actually not that hard to get to. You can get to pretty quickly when you're dosing by teaspoons. All right. So, like I said, there's a link to the Excel sheet in the description if you want your own copy. I did make a blank Excel one so that, not a blank, but all you have to do is put in the percent alcohol in your solution in case you have a different percentage alcohol in your whatever tincture you're using. You know, if you know it's a 10% alcohol solution or a 30% alcohol solution, you just put that in and it'll recalculate everything, and then you can see how many drops you can give to different sized patients in order to stay at these different levels. So I hope that helps. I actually do find this very helpful. I know exactly how much room I have to play with, and I can assure parents, you know, if they're worried about alcohol, exactly how much they can and cannot give based on this information. But again, like I said at the beginning, take this with a very large grain of salt. Make sure you've got some, you are really comfortable with the dose you're giving, because this data is all extrapolated from children or adults, and infants in particular, and newborns, of course, metabolize alcohol slower than children and adults, and so the fact that this data is extrapolated is a bit problematic. Okay, so be cautious. Okay, I don't want anyone telling me they gave a ton of alcohol because I said they could. I'm not. I'm just trying to give you information. Anyway, it's like I said, hope that helps. Don't ever ask me to do math again. I will not.